Negative K, nothing further, just kitty camping in the corner.
I've been a full-time state trooper for almost 10 years, and through those years I've experienced many different things most wouldn't. Lots of people tend to think that our jobs mostly consist of writing tickets and arresting people. However, I've dealt with much worse. I'm what you'd call a pretty tough guy, not so much physically, but rather mentally, meaning I'm more resilient than most people in my department. I've seen some stuff people would freak out just knowing exists to make them realize how hard our jobs are. This happened about maybe 3 years ago. I had been on patrol on an interstate at about 1 a.m. It was a weeknight if I can remember correctly, so there weren't many cars on the road, especially at this time of night. Lately, there had been an increase in crime around the area, so we'd work in shifts patrolling this part of the city. After all, unless you're living under a rock, Nashville is known for its high crime rate. Those of you who live here, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I had been driving along the highway, seemingly alone with no other cars around. Then, just up ahead, my headlights reveal someone walking alongside of the road. He waves his arms up in the air as a way to get my attention. Now, before I continue, let me give you some context of this person. He was a younger man, a person of color, wearing a raincoat and a red cap that spelled out the word croak. I have zero clue what that was or what it meant, but it just stuck to me for some reason. I pull off to the side of the road and get out of my cruiser to talk to him. Right away, he starts going on about how he was being hunted by this group of people up the road and that he needed a ride back to someplace safe. I could tell he was slurring his words every so often, but I never thought much of it. I calmly say that I could give him a ride, but that I would need to find out who he was and what was going on. He went on to say that these people took his wallet that contained his ID and other information. When I asked for his name, he hesitated for a few seconds by looking around before telling me his name was James Rogers. It was a little strange, but he's clearly in distress. Based on his behavior and the way he was reacting, it was clear he was horrified by something. I told him to get in my car and that if there were people up the road, that I'd radio dispatch to send units that way. Just to be safe, I ended up taking another way to the station so that I could properly identify the person I just picked up. After all, it's our practice to identify people we pick up some way, somehow, even without an ID. Now, something I've noticed was when he climbed into the back seat of my car, his demeanor completely changed. He went from scared and shaken up to staying absolutely silent while giving me this menacing stare. I assumed he had to have had some sort of mental disorder and didn't really look too much into it. However, the longer he stared at me, the creepier it got. He was staring down at me as if he wanted to attack me in some way, as if I just did the worst thing possible to him. I tried to be somewhat ballsy and create small talk by saying, "So, you from around here, man?" Very softly, he replies with a yeah and just continues his gaze. Something told me he wasn't this casual guy like I thought. I say this because his attitude sort of changed right when he got into my car, and I didn't see these people that he claimed were chasing him up the road. No people, no vehicles, nothing to prove that there was someone else nearby. I pull into the station and guide him into the building where I was met with the booking officer and my supervisor who would run his prints. So I pull my new friend into the room and he gladly allows us to take his fingerprints. Our live scanner usually runs pretty fast, so if there were any hits, we'd get them in minutes. Sure enough, we run his prints and what we found was horrifying. According to his file, he held a hefty criminal record and was wanted for assault and murder in 5 counties and 2 other states. When we confronted him about this, he started to play dumb and said that he didn't know what we were talking about or how that happened. Obviously, we weren't falling for it and of course detained him. Turns out, he had escaped police in Ohio and fled 2 states over to avoid repercussions and managed to stay hidden for well over a month. We had investigators do a search of the area I picked him up in and found something absolutely horrific. The body of a 19-year-old woman was found tucked away under some brush below the highway. Sure enough, his DNA was matched and found on her clothing, to which he later admitted to killing her while on her way home from work. This explained the reason as to why he seemed so shaken up and used the excuse that people were after him. He was arrested and received a life sentence for the killings of 6 people in total by the state of Tennessee. Be careful when driving on the roads at night, especially in dangerous cities like Nashville. You don't know who's lurking in the shadows. Dispatcher here. This story is one of the most horrific calls I ever had to take, as it still makes the hair on my arm stand up till this day. Calls with kids are the worst. Got a call from what sounded like a young girl whispering into the phone telling me that she was in trouble. Now, I didn't know if it may have been the connection or her in general, but it was really hard to hear her. All I could make out was that she needed help and was clearly in distress. However, I managed to get an address from her, and I dispatched units to the address and kept the line open until officers arrived. Depending on the situation, we're required to stay on the line with the victim, especially if a crime was committed. That being said, I stayed on the line with her and told her that officers were on the way and that whatever was going on, for her to remain quiet. Now, I obviously wasn't there for this next part, but I could say what happened after based on the report. About 5 or so minutes later, police arrive on scene and out steps a man in his early 40s asking what the problem was. They of course say they got a call from this address about a girl in need of help. Apparently, the guy had this confused look on his face and said that nobody called 911 and that there was no emergency. The officers said that he seemed suspicious and that something in their gut told them something more sinister was occurring. Now, this next part is nothing short of a miracle, as I still can't even believe this was spotted. As the officers were speaking to the man, one of them managed to spot what appeared to be a hand sticking out of a window. The man gets this shocked look on his face and he's immediately detained while the officers investigate. Turns out, the hand waving around was the girl on the phone. Officers found her inside of a locked room chained to a bed along with her 7-year-old brother. Tons of black mold spread throughout the walls with roaches among the clutter of absolute filth. The girl turned out to be the guy's daughter, who was found severely bruised. This guy was obviously arrested, and the children were admitted to the hospital, who then went to stay with their cousins. Why their mother is out of the picture is unknown, but their father clearly mistreated them. I have no idea how long the guy was thrown in prison for what happened, but quite frankly, I don't want to know. I guess this incident just hits me harder because my ex-husband had neglected my kids before I got full custody. Some parents don't deserve kids. It's sickening. I'm a police officer in South Carolina. I've been doing this since I was around 30, and it's been a stressful but also a joyful experience. However, it's not at all an exciting job most people would think it is. I won't disclose the name of the actual town I lived in, but it was one of those towns that wasn't too safe but wasn't too dangerous. I would most of the time be doing the night shifts where the chances of crime slightly increased. Most of the time, you'd mainly get calls of people shoplifting and maybe even occasional break-ins every once in a while. I've been on several calls that had to do with both those kinds of things, but for the most part, it wasn't anything life-threatening. Throughout my time as an officer, I've definitely had to deal with stressful situations, but this incident takes the prize. There was this one night where I didn't receive any calls and was just cruising down on the road with no cars and no streetlights. As I'm driving, I then see up ahead these orange reflectors that appeared to be blocking the road in front of me. Beside these reflectors was a parked unmarked car with its headlights turned off. As I got closer, I realized that these reflectors I was seeing were traffic cones. All of a sudden, a man got out of the car and slowly approached me. He looked to be in his early 20s, about 6'1", and wore what appeared to be a police uniform that wasn't part of our town. I got out of my car to ask what was going on, and he had apologized, telling me that I had to go around the other way. In a direct tone, I ask, "What's your name, son?" He replies with Officer Darrell and that he had been assigned to close the road. Right away, I immediately started to have suspicions of him, as even though he was in uniform, it still didn't seem official. What I mean by this is that he didn't have equipment on except for a radio and a gun case. When I confronted him about this, he had claimed that he was under-equipped and that he worked for a county that I've never heard of. This instantly made me suspicious, as there were many red flags in his story. Despite the flashing lights coming from his unmarked vehicle, I knew there was a good chance he was a fake cop. Eventually, I scoffed at him, declared that I was not stupid, and to put his hands behind his back. However, he didn't budge and didn't even look scared or guilty. He just stood there, staring in my direction with this blank expression on his face, as if he were doing something mundane, like taking out the trash or raking leaves. Suddenly, I hear what sounds like a twig snap from behind me. I turn around and see this very tall person wearing a white ski mask. In his hand, a fire axe. I instantly draw my gun while screaming, telling him to put the axe down. He doesn't comply, and that's when I hear and see movement coming from around the tree line. I yell out for everyone to come out of the woods with their hands up while still keeping my eye on the guy with the axe. Long story short, about 15 or so people wearing these scary masks emerge out of the woods with their hands up. A few seconds later, the phony cop says to me in a smug tone, "I think you should probably leave." Without hesitation, I get in my car and drive back the way I came while radioing dispatch for backup. I'd say I drove back to the police station so fast that I didn't care what the speed limit was. The station had dispatched several units to the area I was in. However, like in many unfortunate situations, whoever was there disappeared into the woods. We ended up recovering the car, which ended up being stolen from 3 towns over. There was an open investigation that lasted for about a week before it was closed, as we couldn't find any more info. I'm still not sure what it was that I encountered that night, but I believe it was an ambush meant to trap unsuspecting victims. Given that I was a police officer, I had somewhat an advantage, which is why they let me go. This just goes to show you as to how hard our jobs can really be. A few months later, a woman and her boyfriend went missing in the exact same area. Their car was found, but they weren't. The news said that they likely got lost as they were walking through the woods, but I've always wondered about that. My name is Amanda Vasquez, and I'm currently a police dispatcher for my local police department. I had just graduated with my BA in criminal justice and got a job as a dispatcher right outside of college. It's definitely not the most prettiest role, but I manage here and there. Throughout the shift, I'd maybe have 70 plus calls come my way that I would have to take up on, most of them being pretty disturbing. Mind you, I'm used to this kind of stuff, so it doesn't scar me like most would. I've had several upsetting calls come in, anywhere from prank calls to actual murders. You've probably heard these types of calls online, but when you hear it in person, it can really mess with your head. This happened just a month ago, and I'm still shaken up by it. It was 2 a.m. on a weekend, and I got a call from a frantic woman sobbing over the phone telling me that someone was in her house. She goes on to explain that there was this man she had never seen before standing in her hallway. I asked if anyone else was in the house, to which she said her son, but that he was sleeping in the other room. Believe me when I say she sounded absolutely horrified and couldn't even keep a sentence straight. After trying to calm her down by telling her the cops were on the way, she then sees the man crawling up the stairs like an animal. All the while, she's sobbing when her son happens to wake up and goes to seek shelter for her. Then, maybe about a few more words exchange, and I hear the voice of a man say,
"You shouldn't have called."
Just a warning before this next part is shown. The original audio contains some graphic and disturbing content that you may find upsetting. I don't recommend you listen to this call if you have a weak stomach, as it's very hard to listen to. That being said, here it is.
911, what's your emergency?
Someone's inside my house.
Okay, ma'am, I need you to stay calm. Are you alone?
No, my son's upstairs sleeping.
What's your address?
Oh, please hurry. Please, he's standing in the hallway.
Who's standing in the hallway?
No, I don't know him. He's just staring at me.
Lock yourself in a room right now. Stay on the line. Officers are on their way.
Oh my God, he's moving. He's walking.
Ma'am, stay calm. Can you get to your son?
Oh, he's at the bottom of the stairs. He's looking up. He's looking right at my son's room.
Ma'am, do not engage him. Stay hidden.
He's smiling.
Officers are 4 minutes out.
He's crawling up the stairs on his hands and knees. Oh my God, he looks like an
Stay
animal.
quiet. Stay quiet.
Mommy?
Is that your son?
Yes! Oh God, no!
Ma'am, hello? Can you hear me? Officers are pulling up now.
Just by listening to that recording, it makes most people's skin crawl. Officers arrive at the scene and were met with a horrific sight. The body of the mother and the supposed man in the house were both on the floor with her 5-year-old crying on the couch. The mother was dead, but the man was in critical condition, just on the verge of death. Investigators say the mom had a bullet to the chest while the guy had his throat cut with a piece of glass. Now, there isn't a definite, concrete answer as to what actually happened, but here's what we think happened. The man most likely tried to somehow attack her with the gun he had, and she had defended herself by jabbing a piece of glass from a broken mirror. This was all based on what we saw and what her child had told us, and looking back to it, it makes sense. Knowing that a mom saved her 5-year-old child from evil was enough to make me quit the police department. I was young and cocky, thinking that this job would be cake, only to learn the complete opposite. If this call left a mark on me, I can only imagine what it's like for actual officers to take calls like this and see it for themselves. The story ends here, but evil doesn't.